Welcome. Welcome to you all to this unique place in the world, a space that promotes and highlights reflection, analysis of the reality that is happening in front of us, and often we do not have time to assimilate it. So now I'm going to speak Spanish. I want to make my message as simple and direct as possible in order to facilitate dialogue and the exchange of opinions. The slogan of these Trobades this year is Places in the World. And therefore I'd like to talk about this place from the physical point of view, but also from a different dimension. Sant Lluís, as you all know, is from a physical point of view a very singular place. It is the birth of the Menorcan origins of Albert Camus. It is such an enchanting place that it is visited by thousands of visitors every year, and it is still focusing on its authenticity in order to continue saying that we are a place to be reminded of, to be remembered in the world. Now, going to a different dimension, a different sphere, Sant Lluís and these Trobades are one of these places where we that are fighting in order to prevent the world from falling apart, as Camus said. And I have to say this, we need many places of resistance in a place that is disoriented, that is incoherent in its practices. We're still talking about wars, terrible climate change and polarizations that have become more and more extreme, and discussions that are non-substantial, of inequalities that are ever growing, and a critical sense that is limited. We need to protect places and refuges where we can spend time analyzing keeping dialogues alive and planning places from which we can invent possibilities, as we will be discussing during the Trobades, this gathering. For me, the first of these places is conscious awareness, the individual conscience, the one we all have, each of us has. For me, that's the place from where everything comes, where everything is originated. For many years, I've tried to convey the message that life can only be conceived from conscience. And it is simple and complex at the same time. What does that mean? It means being aware of the consequences of our thoughts and actions. And this implies being responsible for all of them. This means accepting from the very beginning that every action has a consequence, that nothing is the result of hazard. No, it's not a coincidence or by chance. If we are at a certain place, it's because we've made a decision or we've chosen a certain path, that we've been brought to that place by circumstances. So it's being aware of what we do, and we must not only think about the repercussions of the big decisions in our lives, but also, and above all, of the small attitudes and small decisions we make every day, every gesture, because each action has a reaction, and that is true. The individual conscious is the one that allows us to assess the consequences and repercussions what we do will have on ourselves and also on the group, on the society. And collective conscious is what allows us to assess the terrain where we can choose our path. That's the individual conscious, the territory that each of us knows and manages, and that will be built on the basis of what we learn, live, and receive. This is why I believe conscience is the most important place in the world, a space of freedom that requires the capacity of being critical and of ethical values. This is why I believe humankind should work in order to feed individual consciences with arguments that will promote and facilitate coexistence. For me, conscience is the first place from which we can improve the world, and the second place for that is community. That's the space where we can understand that the world is not a sum of the different individuals, but a space of mutual and community interaction, what we call community. Another of my favorite sentences is, I am because we are all together. We are people as long as we understand that we have this belonging to a group. Without this, initiatives such as the Trobades wouldn't have sense. We understand that we are facing a same path, each one at its own rhythm, with his or her own shoes, with our individual understanding and feeling of community. These are the two places in my mind in order to advance towards a fairer society that will be better. These places will strengthen each other in spaces like this one here in Sant Lluís, in the Trobades, where we meet once and again. And Camus said that if the man that has hope in humankind is a crazy one, the one that despairs in their actions is a coward. So I invite you to become crazy in Camus' way, so that we can all be a bit mad, a bit crazy, and continue defending humankind. And so that we can do that, each of us, from our individual places, from our individual consciences, within ourselves, with the support of the community that we need to strengthen all together so that the world will become a better place. If you need a physical place in order to sustain this path, don't forget Sant Lluís will always be the starting point for such a path. It is a place where you can get your strengths together to continue in the progress for the common wealth and good. I'd like to thank Sandra Maunac and Miguel Ángel Moratinos for having been able to imagine this project and turn it into a reality. And also I'd like to thank the previous majors who believed in this project and contributed to making it be real. I am personally very proud of having belonged to this project and having contributed to it for these last 4 years. So once again, welcome to you all to this place, a place for words, reflections and analysis. Thank you very much. Welcome to you all to Sant Lluís, to this cultural center, Albert Camus. Welcome to Menorca, to the Balearic Islands, and welcome to the Mediterranean Sea that joins us, that is demanding from us. We are here in Albert Camus' home, in this cultural center, Albert Camus, in this beautiful village with so many Camus and family roots, and also with the commitment and engagement conveyed by Albert Camus. Thank you, the Mayor, Carol Marques, the teams, Adelaida, I don't know if she's here. Thank you to all of you for helping us gather every 2 years so that we can try to dialogue and reflect, as Carol just said. And just take some time, stop, because in these current times, in this new and uncertain world, we are always accelerating, we're hurrying up, we're all nervous, will we be on time or not? Breakfast, will we have time for it or not? We're always hurrying up, but here we need to stop. In this particular space, in this Camusian space, we can stop for 2 days. And just, this patience of reflecting together, the fact of stopping, this will help us continue with a greater wealth, like Sisyphus taking the rock and continue advancing in our paths to make the world a better place. So, thank you, Carol, thank you, everyone, because the Trobades and Premis Mediterranis Albert Camus are part of the cultural heritage of the Balearic Islands, of the Mediterranean Sea, and of Spain. In the cultural agenda of the islands, the Trobades already have a specific chapter that has been selected for them. So this gathering for the critical thinking of Albert Camus, and the attention of the islands is on this at this time of the year. This is thanks to Sant Lluís Mayor, the Islands Council, the Balearic government, and many other sponsors that help us, so that every 2 years we can get together, and that in other years, when we decide on who will be awarded with the Albert Camus prizes, awards, can come together and we can continue advancing. Yesterday, Sandra Maunac already talked about our goals this year, why this edition this year will be developed under the title of Places in the World. Those of you who have been very loyal and have come to every single edition of the Trobades, you know that we've been traveling during the last few years. In the 3 previous editions, we've been traveling through the 3 main worlds of Camus thinking. We started with the myth of going back to Ithaca, and this also the will of Sisyphus myth. During the second edition we talked about rebellion and Prometheus, and we talk about dialogue, because there is no life without dialogue, as we said last year. And this year, this is going to be a sort of a synthesis of Camus' 3 worlds, where they're getting together, this will of meeting of finding ourselves. Humankind, or human beings, in this search for their own conscious, they find that they live in a world, a different one for each of us. And Camus, in his very famous speech when he received the Nobel Prize of Literature in Sweden, and we will have the pleasure of listening to Agnes Piguel later on, and he said this wonderful sentence that we often go back to, that I think is going to be very important in this 4th edition. He said that it is true that every generation is born with the intention of changing the world, and he said they won't be able to do that, but he said, but they're going to do something that is even more important than that. They will prevent the world from falling apart. And the world in 2023 is here, and I really hope it will not fall apart, but the truth is that the world is facing two enormous challenges. How to save the planet, how to avoid global warming from creating terrible disasters, natural disasters that will lead to destroying many lives and the natural environments. But at the same time, we need to save humankind, because humankind is live in a war. That is the case in Europe. And there's another sentence I like to remember and remind you all, that Camus wrote an ambivalent sentence. He said that the only struggle that is worth fighting is that of peace. Peace. Can you hear peace? Do you work with this concept? Can you hear peace, noise, the sound of peace in Europe, or do we hear drums calling for war? Peace is not an art, as Jung Chu said. Peace is not an art because it destroys. It doesn't allow for beauty, for creation. War is the darkness, is everything that destroys it. As Hannah Arendt said, it's not politics, it's the end of politics. Even though Rosenberg used to say that war is the continuation of politics using a different path. No, Roosevelt, no. That's not politics. Politics is making people and citizens come to an agreement to avoid crisis and conflicts. So this is why during this 4th edition, now that we are facing this world that is falling apart, we must consider and think about the need of peace. We must call for this word, this concept, this fashion of living and the way we want to live. And this is where we find Camus' legacy. But the world is changing. It's not a bipolar world. It's not an hegemonic world with one great power, not even with what contributed to the development of humankind. This is a world that we need to share, multipolar, with different cultures and civilizations, different religions, different players who want to have their own voice. And the alliance of civilizations that I have presided, we tried within the alliance to build bridges. As Ria Luca said, one of the participants to this Trobades, we need to create a bridge generation in comparison to the contention generations that were creating barriers and fences. We may build barriers and dams, but that will not stop the waters when they go up. And this will lead to chaos. We need to build bridges of knowledge, respect, coexistence, solidarity. That's the generation we need to build. And in this world, the sapiens citizen, the 21st century citizen, has an additional challenge that is even greater, even deeper, even with a greater risk, and that is the society of algorithms. Algorithms that will want to control us, that of course will make life easier for us, but at the same time will create something that Camus would reject for sure. This topic, utopias, because they end up creating a virtual world that young people are tempted with, and they are incentivized to believe that they are discovering new science fictions, but they're going away from the freedom of choosing by oneself. They getting away from thinking. Of course, we will have to, well, see what's happening with AI and all these investments in AI, the private sector, the public sector. Everyone's calling for investing into artificial intelligence. And I wonder, how much are we investing in human intelligence, which is the one that created artificial intelligence? And this Albert Camus Trobades represent an investment in human intelligence, and this is where we all gather together. So now to conclude, I'd just like to say that we must create those spaces. We need to continue reflecting and discussing, creating dialogues. This is why we need the critical heritage legacy of Albert Camus. That's why we need Matías Enad's work. This is why we need Laura Fernández. This is why we need Hassan Sissoko with images from faraway Africa. This is why we need you all. We need you all to create a better world, to create those spaces of resistance, of imagination and creation. Thank you very much.